Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Tuesday, March the 29th council agenda session. I now call this meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance and invocation this afternoon will be given by Councilman Ledford. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir. All right. For our special presentation this afternoon, we will have a public input session on redistricting. So at this time, I'm going to turn the chair over to the committee chair, Councilwoman Burrs, for the public input session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This will be the third public meeting we've had, and this one is strictly for public input. My colleagues have met in their districts. They have gotten all sorts of input, and now we're going to have this meeting, and I look forward to all the input. What's been requested, and Chief, are you there? Chief, yeah. Do you have the slides that were requested? These are all on the webpage, and they've been on the webpage for several weeks. It's the same information that we dealt with, and council requested that they be put up again. So let's do that first. And while they're doing that, and we're on record several times as saying, I as chair of the committee, saying follow the law. The instructions were follow the law, apply the numbers from the census, which is what the law requires, and make as little disruption to districts as possible. And I think what we've gone over and over again is the law, and apparently a number of you didn't realize it was on the website. Everything we've done has been on the website, which I guess is the fourth public hearing, but we thought we'd review it again. So these were the requirements and considerations. Equal distribution of voters. You can't always distribute, and this is all federal and state. You can't equally distribute voters for a number of reasons. So we must meet the 10% rule. If, say, each district, if you took what's the number, Rakita? Yeah. All right, 181,099 people. That's again from census. And if you were divided by 9, you would get some number. And so what the federal law says is that number, because of geographic constraints, can vary as much as 10%. That's why everybody doesn't have an equal number. Meaning absolute difference between max and minimum can't be more than 10%, which is what I just said. Per city charter, it must be completed at least 1 year before the next city election. The next city election is in 2005. I guess we could have held off till 2004, but we decided to go ahead. So none of this that's going to be decided will take effect until 2005. I mean, 25, 4, 5, 25. So nothing's going to change in your lives until 2025. All right. And redistricting cannot take less than 6 months. So it can't be any less than 6 months. We're way in front of that. You can't write out an incumbent. You can't decide that you don't like so-and-so and then write them out. You can't do that. Public input is not required by state law or the charter. We, however, decided that we wanted a lot of public input, and we started out with each one of these of our council members, my colleagues, meeting and talking with their districts where it was appropriate. So we made it district specific because redistricting is district specific. And now we're having a large public input session. So those are the laws we followed. Next slide.
I think that this is just a quick review of the process that was used. These aren't necessarily the laws that are required to take into consideration whenever you're building a map, although they're important and they're considered best practices around following natural boundaries like rivers and mountains, those kinds of things, major roadways, land features, and then also using the pre-existing neighborhood boundary file as a guideline to keep neighborhoods contiguous. Councilman Smith made a good point earlier at the previous meeting where he mentioned that it is against federal law to split census block groups, which is a small unit of the census. And so we do have considerations as we put a map together, things that we can and can't do. And then there are strong things nationally that whenever you build a map that you should and should not
And
do.
I think that becomes very important because that's the subtext of all of this. Once you follow this, then you look at census tracts. You can't split those up. When you're looking at natural boundaries that we have here, you want to go along with those, not have people going over areas that make no sense. So yes, there were a bunch of subtopics. So thank you very much. Do you have by any chance the numbers that we looked at, or did you just put up the law? Huh? All right. So these are the current council districts with the 20, this is also up on the website, council districts with the 2020 population. There were questions about Black versus white districts. There were also questions about of color. In other words, what is a minority? The federal government didn't really answer that other than to say it's non-white. Well, that doesn't really represent ethnic backgrounds and all of that. So these are based on the best we could do because we had these questions. Several council people wanted to know Black alone or two or more races. One of the things that happened with the census this time is that people were answering two or more races, all right, which is very common. That represents society. The federal government didn't particularly go along in the rules with that. It's not that they said no, it's that we wanted to go deeper. So please look at these data as well. And is there another one? All right. What we had to do because of the shift in people in general, people are moving all over Chattanooga. Thank God. I mean, there's all people living in all neighborhoods now. And so that was a really neat thing to do. So you have these. Now go to the next one, the next slide, please. And this was the outcome. Districts 1, 2, and 3 shifted together in a clockwise direction. So I can tell you what happened to me. This is confusing. A perfect example is District 4. It grew unbelievably. It's bounded. The only district it touches is mine, District 6. So the only way they could lose people was I had to take more people in my district, which is great. I'm glad to have them, which meant that Councilman Hester had to take more people in his district. So the lines had to be massaged. And so you move people around balancing, still following the rules. So districts 1, 2, and 3 shifted together in a clockwise direction. Pine Hill and Northmont Estates moved to 1. North of Eli Road moved to 3. Hill City and City Green and Pinnacle moved into District 2. They had to shift. It's because of population, no other reason. District 5 continues all the way to the river and contains all of Highway 58. It also shifts into the Austin Farm neighborhood. That used to be mine, but I had to give that up. Really great people, but I had to give it up because I had to move more into District 4. East Lake moved into District 8. District 7 now encompasses north part of Main Street, making the neighborhood whole again. And District 9 makes some shifts east. It now includes all of Highland Park and moves out across the ridge further. And that was because I had to move out further. So we did it on total census first, and we're wonderfully surprised to find out that the racial breakdown and balance continued. I don't think we have any more slides. These have been online. You do have one more? Go. What are they? Okay. So here you go. That's pretty even, 19, 20. It's about 20,000 something of people. Here are your deviations. Here's everything that you've been asking about. This was all done computer-wise, given programs that we got from the state of Tennessee and from the federal government. And all of this is online, and it's been online. Ellis, are there any others? I don't remember any others. Okay, so council asked that you be allowed to see all this again, or you can go online right now with your phones and you'll see all this and use it as a basis for your input. We're recording all this, and we really welcome your input. At this point, it's purely an input session. So if you would get up, identify yourself, the district you're in, and you will have comments. Excuse me.
1 hour worth of comments.
I'm going to.
Yes, ma'am.
The chair reminded us that it'll be a limit of 1 hour, 2 minutes per speaker. Thank you, Chair. And get up, introduce yourself, your district, and what you have to say. We're recording, and we're also making notes. Should you have any questions, we'll get that information back to you. Thank you very much. Who wants to go first? And I need a clock of some sort. 2 minutes each. And Mr. Chair, I don't have an hour, so if you'd let me know, the clock isn't working. All right. Okay. Hi, Dr. Holmes.
Hello, my name is Dr. Evelina Holmes. I'm from District 9. As the founder and advisor of the Hamilton County Voters Coalition, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to talk about with the procedure that you used in redrawing the district's map for Chattanooga. On August the 26th, one of our administrators contacted one of the council members to find out what the process would be. And they were told that they had just got through talking about redistricting. And they also shared their previous experience in 2011 about redistricting process as muddy and with much gerrymandering. Then on September 23rd, This same administrator contacted council, the same person again, and indicated and asked what was the process. At that time, the person was told that they had a chair and there was no rush. They had until 2025 to put this plan in place, at least to 2024. Then we didn't learn anything else about the process until March 1st. So 6 months had passed and we are just learning about it, and we learned about it on Chattanooga.com. I have 3 questions. How did the redistricting and mapping process occur? Because between September 21st in 2021 and March 1st of 2022, 5 months without the public's knowledge and input. How did the city council come up with these maps if they never met? This appears to be a lack of transparency on the part of the city council in conducting the redistricting process, and this practice also creates a lack of public trust. And as the council member said about the 2011 redistricting process, it appeared to be muddy.
Thank you, Dr. Holmes.
Good evening. My name is Theresa Turner, and I've made it my priority to be here tonight.
What district do you live in, Ms.
I
Turner?
live in East Ridge, Tennessee.
In East Ridge.
Mhm.
Thank you.
As I've made it my priority to be here this evening as a concerned citizen of Hamilton County who votes representing the Hamilton County Voters Coalition as its co-chair. Over the past 7 months, I have witnessed a very public and engaging discussion on redistricting with members of the Hamilton County Commission Redistricting Committee as a whole, including the whole process the committee would use for developing maps and input on recommendations for changes to such maps by individual commissioners and by community members. While the process was by no means perfect, there was perfect transparency, and the commissioners appeared to be listening to the interest of citizens. I have a couple of questions. One being, whose agenda and purpose has it served for the City Council redistricting discussion, report, or plans, including the development of maps, for such limited engagement by so few council members and totally absent of a public engagement until tonight? It's obvious to anyone who has an interest in being informed about how the 2020 census data, as reflected in the April 2021 census report, shows up in the Citizens Redistricting Plan. My second question is, it's not a question, it's a recommendation. Tonight, we're asking the following, as you have plenty of time before 2025. Let's restart the redistricting process in the city. Let's include all the city councilors on the committee as a committee of the whole. And let's allow public input at the end of each meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, council. My name is Helen Burns Sharp. I live in District 7. I'm here to ask the council to start the redistricting process over, include all councilors on the committee, and allow public input at the end of each committee meeting. I make this request for 2 reasons. Number 1, I believe your redistricting process to date violated the State Open Meetings Act, also known as the Sunshine Law. A 3-person council committee held private meetings with mayoral staff to develop draft maps to submit to the full council. The Open Meetings Act applies to all governing bodies with the authority to make decisions for or recommendations to a public body on policy. It requires public notice of the meetings, minutes to be taken of the meetings, and that the meetings be public. Number 2, I believe the public confidence in government has suffered because you did not allow public input as you were developing maps that will affect voting boundaries for the next 10 years. While we appreciate this public hearing, it feels like it's being done as a way for you to check off the public input box before you vote on the maps, perhaps as soon as next week. Without our having had the opportunity to sit in on the meetings as these maps were created, we can't comment intelligently on the boundary lines. We did not know the underlying assumptions. We did not know the various alternatives that may have been explored. You've made a good presentation here. This may be a good plan, but basically the cake is baked. And now you're asking us for our comments. And when you really want public input is when you might think that the public might actually have an idea or tell you, great job. You know, we're not saying that you haven't done a good job here, but clearly this has, it reminds me of Jerry Mitchell when he was on the council one time saying he thought that the whatever was being considered needed a little more time in the oven. I believe this needs more time in the oven. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. Anyone else?
I'm Eric Atkins from District 8. And first of all, we do thank the council for engaging in the complicated topic that is redistricting. Many of us were here 10 years ago when we took this on. And I can tell you, just from my predecessors, like Joe Rowe and Sherman Matthews and Maxine Cousin, we had 6 public input sessions then, where it was public dialogue, where we did do mapping on the board. And compared to 10 years ago, this process to me is flawed, it's insufficient, and it's inadequate. And I believe that we should go and use the models that we did 10 years ago. We can use the models that have undergone many other legislative bodies in this city and county. Because you had a good process with the school board and the county commission where it was public debate and discussion. And no, that might not be state law, but I can tell you from a grassroots level, public input and transparency and openness are hallmarks of democracy that we fight for every year, every legislative session. We think it should be included on every public dialogues. Is to have the public actively engaged, because we're looking at things such as maintaining minority majority districts. We're looking at gerrymandering. We're looking at any elements of retrogression, meaning if the dial has been turned back, because we know there's over 400 voter suppression laws that have been put into legislatures across this country last year, and over 24 passed. And we will stand fast on what we see is the sacred right to vote and fairness and openness in all of our processes, redistricting included.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Is there anyone else?
Hello, my name is Audrey Ramsey. I live off of Signal Mountain Boulevard on Mountain Creek Road. I think that's District 2. I know my county district. I don't know my city district. Sorry. But anyway, I'd like to say that thank you so very much for giving us this opportunity to express our concerns about this redistricting process and the remapping of the districts within the city of Chattanooga. And I don't have to remind you that we are living in some very contentious times with regards to poverty, violent crimes, gang violence, a poor educational system in certain districts, a lack of resources in our underserved communities, and an overall disrespect for one another. I've been gone for 30 years and now I've been back, so these are my observations. For some Chattanooga citizens, life here is to live in fear, lack, hatred, and separation. No doubt the results of past legislation, policies, and regulations that have shaped our current society. Today, the battle cry calls for conscious leadership, a leadership that requires an ability to collaborate across the board, regardless of party lines, state and local seats, a conscious leadership that lives up to the creed of our Constitution that all men and women are created equal, and a leadership that is willing to put in the hard work. This collaborative effort must demonstrate a willingness to invest in our children, regardless of what zip code they live in, and to invest in our seniors, invest in our environment, such as the land, air, and water, and create and invest in safety measures within our communities with an objective to reduce crime and provide support to those affected by crime. When you draw your lines, what will that message be? Will it be one of one Chattanooga, whereby everyone will live in a society that works for everyone?
Thank you, Ms. Ramsey.
It's no time.
It's not on.
Thank you. Marie Mott, District 8. Are 3 meetings enough to engage nearly the 181,000 citizens that you claim and properly inform constituents of the redistricting process? Must elected officials who represent the power of the people be told by the law to do what is right and in the best interest of the people? Is a process that is fair often that we claim? What happened in this meeting? Is it fair if people are talking and we don't know who? If people presented information and we don't know who? And who vetted the information that you received in the very first place? Is there not a clear agenda to put 2 junior members of the council on the committee and exclude all members from the proper knowledge necessary to inform and engage as public yearns for trust and true democracy in the form of respect to those who are historically negatively impacted by such processes? One thing that I also want to see, besides just a restarting of the process, is our senior council and our junior council members doing the collaborative work together to explore things such as ranked choice voting that would protect citizens from these ever-changing demographics. We understand, as we know, that gentrification has displaced thousands of Black people in our city, that the population changes is making a wonder-bread white Chattanooga. That is not a one Chattanooga. And if we are going to have majority-minority districts with fair representation of women, Black people, and other individuals of color, and those who are gay and LGBTQIA, we have to ensure that we protect everyone and look at all of what's going on as we make these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mott.
Good evening, Donald Sandifer, District 8. In 10 years, I'll be 78. So I want to be able to look back and say that this process did take place fairly and transparently. And I also do remind you, I'm one of the people who was in the background doing the Brown versus City Commission lawsuit concerning the change in the form of government. That's how all of you all got here.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone else? Then, Mr. Chair, I'll close this input session and turn things back over to you.
All right, Mr. IT, if you'd put our council seating back on my screen, please. All right, here we go. Okay, thank you. What? Okay. All right, our public input session ended at 6:29, and there were no other participants at this time to address the council. All right, proceeding with our agenda this afternoon, could I have a motion on the minutes, please? All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes with a proper second. Are there any questions or comments before we vote? All in favor, aye. Any opposed, no. So moved. Moving now to ordinances on final reading. Madam Clerk, under planning, would you please read 5A, please?
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone properties located at 3838 and 3840 Hickson Pike from R4 Special Zone to C2 Convenience Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Councilwoman Hill.
Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve with a proper second. Are there any questions or comments before we vote? All right, all in favor, aye. Any opposed, no. Motion to approve carries. Madam Clerk, now moving to ordinances on first reading, 6A, please.
An ordinance amending Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 11, Article 20, adding a new section 11519 entitled Moratorium on the Acceptance of Short-Term Vacation Rental Applications for Non-Owner Occupied Rental Properties, which are not the primary residence of the applicant for a period beginning March 22, 2022, up to and including January 9, 2023.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This ordinance was introduced by you, and since you are the chair, you're not able to make a motion. So I would like to make a motion to approve, followed by an amendment, sir.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve. Do I have a second? All right, Mr. Chair, we have a motion on the floor to approve, and you want to make an amendment.
Yes, sir. I also have language submitted by you as well. So I would like to move to amend as stated, amend by deleting for a period beginning March 22nd and by adding for a period beginning on the effective date of this ordinance up to and including January 9th, 2023.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to amend. Do I have a second? All right, we have a motion on the floor to amend with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you, Chair. This is an important conversation for us to be having as a city council, and I appreciate that you've brought it before us. As I mentioned at agenda meeting, there's some things I want to say for the record that I hope will guide our conversation in the future. Proliferation of short-term vacation rentals is causing us to confront some really complex issues that are happening in our community. And in District 2, we have a shared value for a city that has a strong foundation. I believe, and economics would prove out, that thriving mixed-use neighborhoods are economically resilient, while neighborhoods that are reliant solely on tourist lodging are economically fragile. So beyond that, surrendering too much housing stock to become lodging stock will change the fabric of our communities. And I don't know at this point today what the healthy ratios are. We have people at the city who are doing research on that to help us understand best practices. We're working on ascertaining what this needs to look like in Chattanooga. But I do know that our housing stock is not sufficient for the residents of Chattanooga. And what housing is available is increasingly expensive. When I talked with people in my district, one of the things that we find as a common concern is that 10 years from now, we want to know the work we do today will help ensure that people who work in Chattanooga will be able to afford to live in Chattanooga. And that's going to take some thoughtful policy making on the part of this body. Consequently, I am in favor of this moratorium. But that said, I do believe in governing with fairness and with compassion. And I acknowledge fully that there are people right now who are building out non-owner occupied short-term vacation rentals with their life savings. and they deserve some compassion on the part of this body to be able to work through their plans. And so I appreciate the amendment that Councilman Smith brought. I would move to table that amendment and offer a different amendment reading, amend by deleting for a period beginning March 22nd and by adding for a period beginning 1 month from the passage of this ordinance up to and including January 9th, 2023. So for my colleagues, the one change there is what I brought up in agenda session, which would be to give people a full month to get their houses in order, quite literally, before we move into this time of intense study of short-term vacation rental policy in our city. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to table the amendment to bring the effective date to the of this ordinance. So we are going to take a vote first on the motion to table. If we have a second, that's correct. Councilman Ledford?
Mr. Chairman, we talked about this at our agenda session this afternoon, and I do feel some time would be adequate. So in order for this body to actually put it to a vote, I'm going to go ahead and second that motion.
Okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor to table with a proper second. Is there any question on the motion that we're about to vote on? This is a motion to table at this point. All right, Madam Clerk, roll call, please. Motion to table.
Councilwoman Hill? Councilman Ledford? Councilman Hester? Councilwoman Burrs? Councilwoman Dotley? Councilwoman Knoll? Councilwoman Coonrod? Vice Chairman Smith? Chairman Henderson?
No.
That is,
Seven noes.
Mhm.
Okay, 7-2. The motion to table fails. Now we will go to the motion to amend to the effective date of this ordinance. Are there any questions or comments before we vote on the motion to amend to the effective date of this ordinance? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Coonrod? Councilwoman Knoll? Councilwoman Dotley? Councilwoman Burrs? Councilman Hester? Councilman Ledford? Councilwoman Hill? Vice Chairman Smith? Chairman Henderson?
Yes.
It's 9 yeses.
The motion to amend does carry. All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve as amended. Do I have a second? All right, we have a proper second. Are there any questions or comments before we vote on the motion to approve as amended? Okay, I'm just going to do an all in favor, aye. Any opposed, no. The motion to approve as amended does carry. All right, moving on to resolutions. Madam Clerk, if you would, please, let's read 7A, B, C, and D together as a package, unless there is objection from this council. All right.
Item A, a resolution authorizing the chief of police to execute a contract with Thompson Reuters West for Clear Law Enforcement Plus and ENCLR ProFlex LPR software application subscription for a 3-year term for year 1 in the amount of $54,000, year 2 not to exceed $55,000, and year 3 not to exceed $57,000 for a total contract amount not to exceed $165,000 for the 3-year term. Item B, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number Y21021-201 John A. Patton Community Building HVAC installation to Cagle Development LLC of Chattanooga, Tennessee, in the amount of $1,474,000 with a contingency in the amount of $100,000 for a total amount of $1,574,000. Item C, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number R21006201, multiple tennis courts improvements at the Batters Place Recreation Facility to Competition Athletic Services, Inc. of Chattanooga, Tennessee, in the amount of $133,701.20, with a contingency amount of $13,500 for a total amount of $147,201.20. Item D, a resolution rescinding resolution number 30995 to clarify project funding sources, project ownership, and regulatory compliance requirements, and authorizing the Public Works Administrator to execute a revised memorandum of understanding with the Industrial Development Board for the City of Chattanooga for design and construction of multiple wet weather storage facilities to reduce wet weather wastewater overflows within the regional wastewater collection systems relative to the Environmental and Economic Infrastructure Improvement Project, E2I2, with the Hamilton County Water and Wastewater Treatment Authority.
What is the pleasure of the council? All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve item 7A through C with a proper second. Were there any questions or comments before we vote? I'm sorry. D, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve items 7A through D. Thank you. With a proper second. Any questions or comments before we vote? All in favor, aye. Any opposed, no. So moved. Moving now to purchases. Julia, you come in this afternoon.
Good evening, Council. We
Good
have
evening.
7 purchases recommended for approval this evening. The first is from the Citywide Services Division of Public Works, purchase of 500 tons of rock salt to spread on city roads as conditions warrant. This purchase utilizes state contract SWC 507-66846. The vendor is Compass Minerals America, Inc., and the amount is $51,050. The second purchase also from the Citywide Services Division of Public Works. This is a new blanket contract for bags of ice. 1 bid was received. The solicitation was re-advertised and yielded no additional bidders. The award goes to Tennessee Valley Ice Company. This is a 4-year contract with an annual amount not to exceed $50,000. The third purchase from Citywide Services Division of Public Works is a new blanket contract for grounds maintenance of city right-of-ways for short properties. 4 bids were received, and the award goes to Excellent Lawn Care LLC as the best bid meeting specifications. This is a 4-year contract with an annual amount not to exceed $125,000. The fourth is also from Citywide Services Division of Public Works. This is a new blanket contract for grounds maintenance of city right-of-ways for lawn properties. 2 bids were received, and the award goes to Excellent Lawn Care LLC as the best bid meeting specifications. This is a 4-year contract with an annual amount not to exceed $95,000 per year. The fifth is from the Athletic Facilities Division of Parks and Outdoors. This is a purchase of 1 Bobcat S770 skid steer for Warner Park. This purchase utilizes state contract SWC 225-72833. The vendor is Bobcat of Chattanooga, and the amount is $56,169.56. The sixth purchase, also from the Parks Maintenance Division of Parks and Outdoors, is 2 new blanket contracts for turf treatment and athletic field maintenance at select city facilities. 2 bids were received. These will be 4-year contracts, and the awards go to first, River City Athletic Fields with an annual amount not to exceed $44,000, and the second, Weedman Lawn Care with an annual amount not to exceed $181,000. The 7th and final purchase is from the Chattanooga Police Department. This is a purchase of ammunition utilizing state contract SWC-331. The vendor is Precision Delta Corporation, and the amount is $51,747.17.
All right, council. You've heard tonight's purchases. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just had one quick question. Is the rock salt going to melt our bags of ice? Does that equal out?
Yes. Yeah. So the rock salt for the roads, and then ice, I believe, Administrator Hutka may be able to answer a little more clearly on the ice, but I believe that ice is for our crews that are working through the summer.
I just couldn't help point out the irony of those 2 items.
We'll
back
be
to
sure to
back.
keep them separate.
Tom, if you would offline, will you get with me on? I have some questions on lifespan of the rock salt and the timing. Thank you, sir.
All right, what is the pleasure of the council? All right, we have a motion to approve tonight's purchase request with a proper second. Are there any questions or comments before we vote? All in favor, aye. Any opposed, no. So ordered. Moving now to committee reports. Councilwoman Coonrod. Councilwoman Knoll. Councilwoman Dotley. Mr. Vice Chair.
No report, Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman Burrs.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Budget and Finance has no report. Redistricting had a public input session tonight.
Thank you. Councilman Hester. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Planning and Zoning will meet next Tuesday, April 5th, immediately following our agenda session.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Hill. All right, that takes care of all of our agenda items this afternoon, which brings us to the time of our agenda that we recognize persons wishing to address the council. By a show of hands, is there anyone here tonight that would like to address the council? All right, thank you. I'm going to ask the attorney if he would read the rules to address the council, and you can begin making your way to the podium. And Mr. IT, if you'd give us 3 minutes on the clock, please.
At the end of every council meeting, the chair will recognize members of the public that wish to address the council. Here's your rules. Each speaker wishing to address the council can only be recognized at the microphone up front for that purpose. You can't have more than 3 minutes to speak. You can address the council only upon matters within their legislative and quasi-judicial authority and not upon matters that are not under their authority and are regulated by other governmental bodies or agencies. Don't use any vulgar or obscene language nor use the floor to personally attack or personally denigrate others, and address your comments to the council as a whole and not direct them towards individual council members. Having stated those rules, come forward, ma'am.
And if you would just give us your name, and we need 3 minutes on the clock.
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Betty Maddox Battle, and I am the founder of a homicide support group, Grieving Relatives in Every Violent Event, acronym for GRIEVE. When I was here before, I spoke with you all in reference to a homicide support group. I retired out of law enforcement. I know what it is to bury a son. And with all the violence that's going on in the community today, moving back, trying to make a difference in the city, I see there's a lot of, I can't get nobody to give me a direct answer. With all due respect, Commissioner Hester, the last time I spoke, I gave you my information. I have yet to hear from you.
Ma'am, part of our rules is that we don't direct a comment directly to a council
I
person.
apologize.
Thank you.
I apologize. But on saying that, we need to have something for these grieving families in the city where they can go once a month or twice a month, where they can vent, provide resources, and just do whatever it needs to be done to help them get through to their next level. I know that what's going on in the city is going on in city of Chattanooga, is going on all over the world. I would submit to you, I have some solutions. So those of you who would like to sit down with me, I would like to share those solutions with you. I can always be reached at grieve_families@epbfi.com. Or you may call me at 470-885-9524. And please visit my website at grievingrelatives.org. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lisa Brown. My husband and I own 2 permitted short-term vacation rental properties in District 8, where I also serve on the MLK Neighborhood Association Board. I came today to ask you to table this moratorium until the community has more opportunity to work with you on a solution. Y'all have seen my face before. I've been talking to you since 2016, and we've worked together to create a great ordinance. Each time I stand before you, I ask only two considerations in your decision-making process. One, I ask that collectively we use factual information. And two, I ask that members on each side of this issue are heard. In regards to factual information, there are only 301 non-owner occupied permits in this city. Only 137 of those are in residential R1 neighborhoods. In the zip codes found in the overlay zone, there are well over 40,000 residential properties. So we're talking about less than 1% when we're talking about non-permitted. This tells you that the current ordinance is working. Neighborhoods who do not want non-owner occupied STVRs can oppose them. They've come before you 7 times and you've rejected them 7 times. The current ordinance we have is working. Another important fact that I think is critical in this decision-making process, there are 405 total STVR permits between non-owner occupied and owner occupied. AirDNA is a site that studies STVR. In Chattanooga, they are showing 936 active vacation rentals, 936. That means we've got 531 illegal short-term vacation rental properties. I believe in many of the other people in this community that if this moratorium goes into place, you're going to see that number increase substantially. With no avenue for permitting, you're going to see it rise mainly because the city does not have the manpower to enforce this permitting system, and especially the illegal STVRs that are out there. Currently, permitting gives you some control of safety for these units through inspection and also through tax collection. $3.5 million came into our city from Airbnb alone. There are other online sites that aren't collecting taxes, and that's where the illegal STVRs are going, and they're taking our tax dollars with them. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brad Wardlaw. I live in District 1 and own properties in Districts 8 and 9 as well. I'm a realtor and a real estate investor. Short-term vacation rentals aren't the problem with affordable housing in Chattanooga. The current median sold price in the overlay area is $302,000, which is not what most people consider affordable housing. STVR is not shrinking inventory as shown by a limited number of permits applications last year either. There's a tremendous amount, in the city as a whole of boarded up, dilapidated houses that have sat idle for 10 plus years, especially in 37406, where I have quite a few rental properties. Sold with the liens in place, where you still have investors would buy them, put a house back on the property. Now, why would we buy it if there's an additional $30,000 in liens out there? Making a moratorium retroactive without public input and discussion is a disservice to anyone that's in a process of planning or furnishing a new unit. Public input is critical to the democratic process, and you push that aside. There's a permit process in effect now that is working. Chattanooga would sorely miss the revenue brought in by these units. Something else the council needs to consider is that Chattanooga is called the Scenic City. If we want to keep being called the Scenic City, people want to stay in houses rather than hotels when they travel. If we don't have those, we're going to lose out on conventions. We're going to lose out on tourists. We're going to lose out on a lot of things that provide for our service industries. So, in closing, policies like this are things that are going to make myself and other investors take our money elsewhere. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe Riley. I live in District 2. Also want to address the short-term vacation rentals. Won't rehash a lot of the stats that have already been discussed. I started my company when I wanted to build our business here, and now I'm being told that I can't do that. I'm not from California, I'm not from New York, and I'm not driving up property values in the city. I understand the concerns that council members have with irresponsible properties. I understand the concerns that the council members have with affordable housing. But with all respect, I don't think that local owner-operator short-term rentals are what's the source of either of those problems. And so I would respectfully ask that the commission would consider, the council would consider providing an exception for local operators who are investing here in the community. The houses that we have bought and invested in, we've worked to try to improve and improve those communities. We're responsive. To my knowledge, we haven't had issues or complaints with the houses. If there are issues or complaints, there are plenty of ordinances out there that address that, and irresponsible operators should be penalized. I don't think it is all fair to make this retroactive for those who already have business plans and have made, I think most people are familiar with the length of time that it takes to close on a property, to put money in to renovate a property. And you frankly left a lot of people exposed that have built business plans around that. We've tried to follow the rules and go through the permitting. And as they acknowledged, there are plenty others who out there who have not. And so I just think it's an unfair policy for those who are trying to invest in the community, who are here locally, and are trying to follow the rules.
Captain Riley, thank you for your service to our country.
My name is Kelsey Saylor, and I am in District 2. To clarify, am I allowed to ask questions during this period? No,
Well,
just statements?
you can ask questions, but no one is obligated to answer those, but please feel free to
Okay.
comment
So
however you wish.
I was informed that the motivation behind proposing this moratorium was to prevent this topic from becoming eligible for the views of the council members on that.
You will have to check with administration on that. ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, good evening. I'm Donna Morgan, District 1. Thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly with you today. I too am here to talk about the short-term vacation rental amendment here. My name is Donna Morgan, and along with my husband, Toby Morgan, we currently own 4 short-term vacation rentals in the city of Chattanooga. As lifelong residents of Chattanooga, we are excited and proud to host guests and help them enjoy the great things that there are to do here. In support of our community, we also own affordable long-term rentals also in the Lookout Valley area, and we maintain them to the same standards that we do our short-term rentals. We began our Airbnb business in 2019, purchasing a ran-down piece of property in Lookout Valley, well known for a drug activity. And when we were actually remodeling it, we found plenty of drug paraphernalia. We did a full remodel on the interior of the house, as well as we added a deck, a yard, and a fenced-in area for our guests to enjoy. In 2020, we purchased additional piece of property and likewise did a full remodel there. And in 2021, we also purchased 2 additional properties. Just this year, we purchased 2 additional, actually in March, earlier this month, we purchased 2 additional ones and have already started the remodel. And once again, both of those need significant amount of work and significant amount of investment that we're going to do to bring those up to the standards. During the 3 years that we've hosted guests in our Airbnbs, we've had 0 complaints from all of the neighbors around us. They've enjoyed getting to meet the different people that come to our city, and we've maintained a positive review rating of 4.99 out of 5.0. As you can see, we take pride in the city of Chattanooga. We support the growth of Chattanooga via increased property taxes on the remodeled houses, payment of sales taxes and business license that we maintain, and we also support 5 contract employees who help us maintain our. We are in full support of a review of the current regulations for short-term rentals to ensure proper procedures are followed to license a property and ensure it meets safety and city regulations. I was amazed and quite honestly disappointed to hear that there are 500 that are not licensed. That is completely wrong, and we need to take action on that to support the valid business owners. We welcome the opportunity to participate on the panel we feel will be in everyone's interest. I personally believe that we should stop long-term investors from other states and or even other countries coming in that do not have a vested interest in our community, and we should look to regulate that so they're not included. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to come. Would love to participate on the panel, and really, as the previous speaker spoke, give us the opportunity to talk and how we want to grow Chattanooga, and we want to make sure that everyone is following by the procedures. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Park neighborhood, District 9. I just
Name again.
Kurt Mardig.
Okay.
First of all, I don't understand how you guys did a vote without taking this input from us beforehand. I brought my 1-year-old daughter here to see the democratic process, and I think she's probably going to cry to sleep tonight over the kind of fake formality of all of this. In any case, my wife and I moved to Chattanooga last fall, and before we did so, we came to visit here in September of 2020. And when we did so, we came with our family and our dog, and instead of staying hotel in an area where we likely wouldn't live, we stayed in an Airbnb so we could get a feeling for what it would be like to live here. And I'll tell you what, we're not alone. A lot of people, when they come, we're a growing city, people are moving here. And when people do so, they come in a place where they might live. And they want to stay, and they might come with people that need more rooms than what a hotel is going to offer. They want to stay in Airbnbs. And that's a good thing. That gets people to feel what it's like to be in their neighborhoods, and it actually adds vitality to our neighborhoods. To go to your point earlier, it doesn't diminish from it, it adds to it. They support businesses, they go to coffee shops, they find out what it's like to be there. Many other cities, one of the things I think is that many other cities are adopting really strict permitting processes for Airbnbs. And I would think that before you would retroactively enact this moratorium, you would present some evidence that doing such a thing would actually bring down the cost of housing, because we all do agree that the cost of housing is the problem. However, it would be great if you could demonstrate that this is actually contributing a lot more, is contributing to the cost of rising to the COVID, and people just don't even understand what's going on. People aren't selling, they aren't moving. We don't have an understanding of that. It's nothing to do with Airbnb. And secondly, the absurdity of a moratorium is crazy. You guys, some of you come from the business world, would understand that if a person wants to open a new construction company, but if a bunch of people in the city decide there's already enough construction companies, we're going to have a moratorium, you need to shut down new construction companies. That's absurd. Or the mayor comes from car dealership background. Think that the cars are causing traffic. Well, the cars actually come down the car dealership for a while before we can get a grip on what's going on here. Obviously, that's absurd, and so is this moratorium. It's not going to solve anything. If you want to, we want to increase more supply. It got noted earlier. We have a lot of vacant houses. We have a lot of vacant lots. If you want to do something, it'd be A, provide incentive for people to develop housing on vacant lots. Maybe approve accessory dwelling units. That's a super easy. And my last point, I'm sorry, I guess my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else that would like to address the council this afternoon? Anyone else? Council, I'm not seeing anyone else that would like to address the council at this time. What's your pleasure? So moved.